We're going to gain clarity on ourselves and learn more about how reality works. Elle, what do you think? What do people need to know?
You know, when you first broached this to me, the title, the concept, and everything, and there's so many ways to go about it, right? But and intuitively, right away, I start getting ideas. You know, they just flood, and that's how I write my books and everything. And the word reality is the one that really stood out because our realities are being constantly created by not only our actions but our lack of actions, right? Our thoughts, our emotions. And I like to liken it to glasses. So this is my reality based on my prescription. But if I handed them to you, Larry, and we traded glasses, we would go, whoa, you are messed up. Because your prescription doesn't work for me and mine doesn't work for you, right? However, when you're seeing, clearly and I'm seeing clearly, then together we can accomplish so much.
That's such a great setup for the conversation. And we did not plan this, folks. We we just said like just went boom, oh, let's go. My experience of this is that our internal complexity of the blueprint that we have is beyond our understanding. We can't really fully grasp it. We have pieces of it for sure, and we are able to organize that into coherent frameworks of various sorts and utilize that information. But essentially, they're quite different. And the way that I look at this is that we all have the same thing. So we have the we are we is, I is, you is, we are, we're all the same thing. We got that part, right? Now we are distinct facets of the same thing. Those distinct facets, and that idea of individual conscious thought and a different approach and a different lens of glasses is important as well. So these two things of we're all the same and we're all different is the same thing together. Now it sounds crazy to hear that, and it may be a little weird, but it is true. It's partly how reality works. And I think it's important to know that it will free you as you realize that when you bring your unique nature forward, there's a lot of power in that because there's this power plant behind us energizing that when you allow that to happen and allow it to enter you.
Absolutely. When we think of ourselves as, say, a simple drop in the ocean, every drop matters, even if it's being evaporated back up, conscious, and then coming back down to join, the ocean. It all matters. And that's how community works. And so many people don't realize the value of community, where we all bring our reality in to create this ocean of consciousness, right? So we don't have to do it alone. And a lot of people don't know that, right? There are people who have gifts and talents that are beyond the scope of us in this lifetime, and they're happy to share them with us. So when we start to really look at what it means to be a community, we expand our reality and make it bigger and stronger and better.
That's so great. So I have a couple of friends that run a group on Friday, actually, today, 10 o'clock Central, 11 o'clock Eastern, called Brilliant Beasts of Business, Suzanne Taylor King and Sajad Hussein. And we were talking about this today in the room. So I don't know, there were like 20 of us, and we are talking about the go-giver and be in a room, don't be the smartest person in the room, some of this kind of stuff. It came to mind later. When you have a group of people with this powerful energy opened, which is what this room is like, and somebody enters that room that isn't quite there yet, maybe they're struggling, they're still working hard at stuff, they're just not quite feeling that state of existence that we're talking about here, they get lifted up by the group, but they get triggered as well. So they have a choice. Do they want to stay or leave? That's their free will. So the idea of community, I think, is in part is find a community that lifts you up and triggers you at the same time.
Exactly. And be careful for those communities that are pity parties. right? Where you get in this group of community of like-minded people, but not at a higher level of consciousness, and everybody's kind of at the same level, right? So we really need that diversity in thought, experiences, age, all of that, again, to create that synergy that has some momentum and at the same time balance to it.
Balance is important. So everything has its opposite contained within it. So you have the pity party, which is the same as the pride party.
Mm.
So the pride party and the pity party are the same. And we look at it and we're like, oh, they're losers, pity party. And then they're like, oh my God, they're amazing, pride party. I think Elle and I look at it, we're like, you're doing the same thing.
Exactly.
So get out of that room, whichever one you're in.
Exactly. Well, when you were saying if you're the, most intelligent person or the, highest vibe person in the room, it's time to find another room. Not that you're going to leave those people behind and high and dry, and you can continue to find other groups, because one of my favorite things to do is what I call chat with people, and I call it preaching to the choir. Like you and I have so many like conscious thoughts, and past thoughts and forward thinking thoughts. It's really fun to talk and energize with somebody who gets you. And then you've got to go put it into action. So it's great to get, fired up with somebody that has a like consciousness. And then how are you going to share that?
I love that. So I'm doing this deliberately right now for entrepreneurs in an organized way. What you just said without even realizing this is what happened, but it's what happened. So when you have a sense inside yourself of freedom where I don't want any, I don't feel like anything's missing. It doesn't matter what I get, have, don't have, want, it doesn't make any difference. I still feel a sense of inner completeness. That gives me an opportunity to share that with others. And I look at that as like, oh, I'm supposed to share this with others, not just enjoy it for myself. So I've created a room called Intellectual and the Outlaw, which I also do with Sajad. And I look at it as a place for people to come who are ready to elevate their own experience, and be triggered by us sometimes, or feel afraid, or maybe they're like, oh my God, I finally found my people. It doesn't matter. So the idea is, let's open this into the communities that we're in and let whoever shows up show up.
Yes. Yes. And that's how you and I met, was in a community that somebody else had created. And we were both there, and, then
Where
decided
did we meet again? I forgot.
I want to say it was RJ's.
Oh, it was RJ Reedon.
Yes. Yes.
I love RJ. So if RJ, you're listening, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And my thought is anybody that RJ knows and recommends is worth getting to know more.
So let's talk about that. Why does that happen? So the way that this works is that we're existing at this energetic vibrational frequency, right? We all kind of know this. Like, we live on two planes. We got our ordinary world existence right here. We're wading through it and we got to deal with it, right? It's not better or worse than the other. It's just not real. It's just an existence. And then we have our real world sort of underneath it, where our energetic existence is happening, and that's propelling and powering and really driving everything. So when you're in a room of people, or you are a person operating at this certain frequency, you start attracting others that are like that.
Correct.
Now you want to find that. So if you're the kind of person, you're struggling, you're feeling something's missing, you don't feel great about your life right now, you have a state of being issue. You don't have a problem to be solved. So don't go run and find a coach. Don't go find a room where you're going to learn a bunch of stuff. You want to elevate that energetic footprint inside you. And the best way to do it, hang out with a bunch of other people who've done it. That's a good start.
Correct. Yes. And share stories. That's, you get into the mind accepts stories so much better than just facts being pushed on you. It gets caught up in the story and it remembers it. And all of that is super important, because Dr. Wayne Dyer says we are all spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yes, I've heard that quote from you.
So I slaughtered it a little bit, but you get the idea. It was what you were just talking about, right? So we have all of that, but yet at the same time, we're still here today going through the steps, the motions through this temple that houses our beautiful soul, right? And the
Mm.
brain, the gray matter that processes it all. And it can be really beautiful. And even in the darkest, like you're not missing anything, like you just said. It's do you even want that? And unfortunately, those pillars of constructive, oppressive that we've been taught to believe all these years, and it's generational, is so frustrating for me when I hear things like, oh, all multimillionaires have gone bankrupt several times, and you have to work 80 hours a week when you become an entrepreneur, and all of these things. It's like, psh, block it from your memory. That may be your reality, but it's not mine.
The banner for my YouTube channel is everything we were taught is wrong. And I had
Yes.
somebody who's like, boy, that really triggers me. And I was like, good.
Good.
That's my
Exactly.
intention.
Because I work with people's triggers, right? When the work that I do. So we have the neuroplasticity of our brain, and everything wires and fires together. And some things become very ingrained. And when we have those traumas that get triggered as an adult, but they were created when we were young and we didn't have the emotional strength to
Mm.
be able to deal with them, those things can be rewired. They can
Oh, yeah.
be, they can be eliminated. Actually, they can be brought from 1972 into 2023, and so many things can happen. And then at the end of the process, I always ask 3 questions, because now there's an action, right? Because we talked about, you have to go into the laboratory of life and make it happen. And so it's, can you do that? And almost always in state, they say yes. And then, will you do that? And the answer is almost always yes. And then the third question, any doubts? And
Mm.
unless the yes comes just like that, then we pull out the part that's not on board and we go at it again. So
Yeah,
we need a lot of clarity.
that's a great way to do it. So what's happening there is that we have the split. So we've got our true self, which is existing in this energetic, unseen world. Think about a town, right? So in the town, you've got your you've got your, you've got your factory, you got your houses, you got your library, you got your churches, synagogues, whatever, and the people are all running around doing all this stuff. What's supporting the town is reality. So the town itself could go away and another town will get built. So it's temporary, but what's underneath never goes away. The power plant and the stuff that makes the internet work, and all of that. Well, you're in both places. So as a human being, we're separated. As you close that and you come closer, things start happening. Now there's something called the last mile connection, where big things start happening when you plug that final thing into the circuit. So we'll talk a little bit later about how you do this. We have our own methods. So I'm curious about your description of what I said, and what's your method in terms of how to deal with that situation?
So a good question, something that's bouncing around in my mind, and again, I'm giving just a snapshot of it, is a quote by Swami Rama that says, "You do not suffer. Only the perception of who you believe you are can suffer."
That's it's like, I love the circular, like, ooh,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's great. Right
So
on.
I found that to be very fascinating. And so to help people reconnect with what's been lost, right? Our truth, our gifts, our talents. Everybody has an answer. What's the meaning of life? Every person comes into this lifetime with that answer for themselves. And no two people, may have similar, but the language and the feeling behind the words is different for each person. And a lot of people go through life never knowing what their purpose, and that's why they struggle. That's why they self-medicate. That's why they're, on so many drugs or whatever, because they don't, once you get that connection, every day you wake up happy for another chance to share your gifts and talents with the world. You sleep
Yes.
there at night, all of that. So your vibration shifts and you can physically feel it, and other people feel it, because I'm happy all the time and it bothers some people.
Yes, it does. It triggers them.
It triggers them.
They get really, they're like, you're lying.
Exactly. And I can always find the silver
You beat your
lining.
wife at night.
It just comes naturally to me. And so
Mhm.
that's one of my gifts, right? So other people will struggle to find silver linings, but it's possible. And you can, elevate those areas of your life if you choose. But as long as those old programs are running, it's really, really challenging. And so over 25 years ago, I got certified in transformational meditation, and not to be confused with transcendental dental meditation. And I'm only one of about a dozen people on the planet certified in this scientifically proven process, where it's a blend of cognitive coaching, a little bit of hypnosis, and definitely some meditation. And the reason why it works for everybody, emphasis on the word body, is because the conscious mind stays present. So if someone says they can't meditate, the process still works because the conscious
Mm,
mind is part of the process of
got it.
transformational meditation. So we will very often speak to the conscious mind, ask it questions. So when the ego knows it's still involved, but just kind of in the back seat, it generally won't block the process. So we go in and we connect to your true source, where the unconditional love and perception of all that is for you has no fear, doubt, worry, all of that. And then you bring out the parts of you that are, fearful and or whatever negative emotion, and they say their story. And then they hear the truth, and either they choose to believe it or not.
Cruise.
And
Hmm.
if they choose, there you go back to free will that you just
Hmm.
mentioned. So if they choose, then they become one, and they come into the present, the here and the now,
Mm,
to continue to serve you in a way that's benevolent, loving, and kind. Sometimes those parts will tell the higher power, you don't know crap. I'm the one that's been living with her for the last 60 years. And you're okay. Well, that's a
let's
part
work on that. Yeah.
it needs to go.
Yeah.
It's not loving and kind. And even if it thought it was keeping you safe from being hurt or rejected or whatever the experience was, it's just too antiquated. It's just too it's just like trying to run those old video games on the new systems. It's like
Right.
try
It's
as
not going to
hard as
work.
you might, and they're not going to work. It's time for new games. And so that's the process of transformational meditation. And
It's great.
it's quick and the results are amazing. And then, though that being said, a lot of our parts are multifaceted. So sometimes it's not a one and done, right? If things happen over and over, just different situations, people letting you down, then it does have to be continued to be massaged, and the parts come up and get to say their little speech, and then the resolution happens. So it's different, it's unique. The process hasn't changed in over 30 years because it works.
Hmm.
And it's part of the reason why I wake up every day happy and healthy to share my gifts and talents with the world. Because if you and I are working doing a transformational meditation, I get to go in that state as well.
Mm.
I don't want my ego asking questions. I want the questions to be divinely inspired. And so by helping others, I'm also in that beautiful space myself.
That's great. And I do nothing like that. It's totally different and it's exactly the same.
Exactly. Yes.
Um, and I think this is important to understand is that, so two things came to mind. First, the word purpose is confusing. So you can look at it from different lenses. So we started with lenses, right? So purpose could be seen as finding the thing in the world that you want to do. Find your why and all that stuff. That's not how I
Right.
see purpose at all.
Yeah.
So that is a purpose that is useful and helpful to exist in the world, to solve maybe a problem you have. Like, I'm really bored at work and I'd like to find another job, or I'm not a great leader, and if I find my purpose or find my why, I'll be a better leader. That's okay. It just doesn't matter that much. It's important, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So I think when we're talking about purpose, what we're talking about is finding your true self. Your true self knows what your purpose is. You don't know what you want until you find your true self. And the more you connect into your true self, then all of a sudden you're here. This is called is consciousness, where you just is. And when that happens, you know exactly what to do all the time because you're not in charge of anything.
Mhm.
As Les Brown says, how is not my business?
Exactly. Exactly. And when you know your purpose from the level of which you were just explaining, things either make sense or they don't. It's really easy to make decisions.
It's snap. It's
Yes.
instantaneous because what's going on is your true self is connected into all that stuff that supports the little town you live in. What's the town? Time, space, the universes, the galaxies, you, dogs, plants, trees, mushrooms, right? So your true self is over here underneath all this, supporting it through their thoughts,
Yes.
right? So when you connect into your true self like this, now you live the power of now. So Eckhart Tolle says power of now. People are like, so if I'm more mindful, I'll be in the present moment. And I'm like, yeah, that's how I thought about it too. Not now, but yes, that's true too. Both things are true at the same time. So
Right.
yes, I can be mindful. So everybody's meditating. I'm going to become mindful. I'm going to become mindful. Now I'm in the present moment. So what? When the power of now happens, you are like this, you have access to power. And that's what Eckhart Tolle is really talking about. And that's what we want to help people understand, how to find their own way to that.
Yes. Absolutely. And that's why my business is called True Speak. And my catchphrase is say what you want, the truth is in you.
That's perfect.
And when I say what you want, I don't mean that in a snide way. I mean, when you think about the power of the words I am, whatever follows that, be very mindful, be very
It's always right. It's always right. So my company's called Red Pill Pathway. It's the same. We're doing the same thing, folks, but you wouldn't know it looking at it from the surface level. But it is actually, those are called. So we'll talk about this because part of this playlist is about gurus versus sages. So I do the show on Friday with Gail Kraft, and it's called Gurus versus Sages, a new look at the how to improve yourself industry because it's very confused right now. And what we're really talking about at the end of the day is that every truth system's the same. Every guru is teaching from their experience. So they're all different. If you're going to learn from somebody's experience, all you can do is solve a problem. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to change your state of being and your life experience, you can't do that from a guru's playbook because it's not yours. Theirs is different. So be
Exactly.
careful. So if you want to really change your life, you want to find a truth system. What are truth systems? So let's talk about that. What do you think a truth? How would you describe a truth system to somebody?
A truth system, and I've never thought about those words together before, would to me be an alignment, right? Or a trinity of knowing the truth, feeling into that truth, and then acting that truth. So when people know you, they always know what to expect. Not that you're boring, you're authentic. So that truth system to me helps us lead an authentic life, which then allows us to not have dis-ease, and negative emotions. So
Mm.
that was my initial thought.
That's
That's
good. So there's so many
initial.
ways of looking at this. And I think seeing it or hearing it from different points of view will be helpful to people to understand. True systems have a code embedded in them to help for people understand, because we live in a society where there's no lineage holders anymore. So in traditional societies, you had a lineage holder that was responsible for the truth system and making sure it would work. It wasn't all screwed up by false prophet kind of
Yeah.
distortions, which is what is always happens. So you said Trinity. It's important. True systems always have a triangle or a pyramid or a three-part. So for me, with Red Pill Pathway, freedom is the top, and then satisfaction, and then happiness, always. So there's always something like that. There's also always a 5 or a 7 of some sort, or maybe it's a 9 or even a 3. For example, I have the 5 keys, 5 entrepreneur keys, but there's also the 7 immutable laws. There's oh, I don't have it. I was just reading I got it here somewhere, or maybe I brought it. Yeah, it's downstairs, but I was reading Deepak Chopra's 7 spiritual laws or something. That's called the truth system. He didn't invent that,
Right.
so you're looking for those kinds of things. Another thing here, and you'll see this with coaching a lot, is you need to see a 4, an 8, a 10, or a 12 in terms of the way the system is presented. Why? Because we're different. So if you see somebody of, it's like this, they're teaching you from experience. It's not a true system. If you see, here's 8 different ways of being, that's an archetypal blueprint, and you are being steered into a way of identifying which one fits you. So all of these things come. So a go-giver, truth system, and they're designed for very specific purposes because of the language and the time in which they come into existence.
Yes. And for people to be really mindful of those coaches that are already selling you on the next program when you're not even finished with this one.
You
And
mean funnels aren't good? You mean
they're trying
upsells,
to
cross
upsell you.
sells, and
Yeah. And then people,
scarcity and persuasion principles being
oh,
used? That's not good? That's
no,
not
it's good.
okay?
It's good for them, I guess, in their
I thought
pocket.
it was good. I thought that was okay to do that.
Well, that's what they would tell me. I have the
Mm,
problem. I could be making so much more money if I would
yeah.
only. And so, but it's not authentic to me. It's not in alignment, right? I'm happy and healthy with where I am and the people that I serve and the light that I bring. And so that's what happens when people are gurus. Sometimes they think they're the end all. And there's a very famous person whose name I won't mention.
I don't call them out by name. I call them out by description.
And so this man claims to invent things that are already done, and then he just puts another name on it. So he just calls it something else. Like, so NLP's been around forever, and this person calls it NAC and
Yeah.
pretends like they invented it.
There's marketing programs that teach you to do this. It's one of their modules on brand your signature method or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like,
So
oh, come on, guys.
I don't mind,
Hmm.
just give credit. Say, this comes from this. Just give the credit of where the foundation of the ideas and the principles so that
You're
people
a
could also
steward,
look
you're a
at that.
lineage holder, a steward of a wisdom tradition, and you need to be blessed. Somebody's got to say, you know how to do that now. That's what happened with you. You were taught something that you feel a sense of stewardship over, right?
Very much so. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
keep and not adapting it because it just the way it is how it's meant to be. Right. And so my mentor who facilitated all of us through this program and this process, is kind of ready to retire. But so, we will continue to carry on the purity of it going forward.
Yeah.
And in my 20s, I was in a coffee shop called The Library, and I heard very clearly, like somebody was whispering behind me, and it said, "You're a prophet." I'm a prophet. And I
Yeah.
because I thought somebody was behind me. And it scared Larry because I was in my early 20s. It scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
It's not that I was hearing voices, but that was such a large, you know, statement
We're
that
all
at
Moses.
the time I didn't think it was possible. But now I know with the work that I do that was clarity that came in at a very young age.
That's amazing. So I want to say that again because I interrupted you and people wouldn't hear it. So I am Moses. I am Jesus. I am God. That's called I am consciousness, is consciousness. I am Buddha. This is what we're talking about here. So when you hear something like that, that doesn't mean your ego is telling you something that you need to work on or whatever.
Right.
This is an understanding of experience and existence So, people are going to kill me now for saying stuff like this. So Christ, I'll use your own religion on you. How's that? So Christ consciousness, what do you think that is? That's the realization of I am Christ. In Buddhism, it's easier because they just say it. They're just like, here's how it works. So I have realized my Buddha nature. I'm Buddha. And the Buddha's like, yeah, you're Buddha too. So it's all pretty clear. And I think Christ said the same thing. I think the people who followed him got confused,
I agree.
right?
Yeah. The message got lost somewhere and there's some steward along the line. shifted the.
I want to look into that. I'm trying to figure it out, but I've been studying Yogananda a little bit because I love him. And he wrote Autobiography of a Yogi. And he also wrote a book, Second Coming of Christ or something. I've got it on my bookshelf back here. It's the Second Coming of Christ, the resurrection of the Christ within you. I'm not a Christian. I wasn't raised in Christianity. I'm a Christian. I'm not a Christian. I have Christ consciousness inside me. And the reason he wrote the book was to teach. Who wrote the book? He channeled Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ said, we need to straighten out these Westerners.
Yeah.
What's the book about? It's that the Bhagavad Gita from the yogic tradition is the same thing as Christianity. And the Christians got confused. So in the 1920s, 30s, you get this guy from India who comes and tours all over the United States and says, let me explain to you how it works. It's very helpful and useful.
I have heard of it. I have not read it. So it's going to the top of the list. Thank you, Larry.
Oh, you'll love Autobiography of a Yogi. So the reason I'm saying this is not to be a jerk. I'm trying to trigger people because there are people who are, I was talking to a woman yesterday who will be on this program. So we're going to do an interview pretty soon, who is, and I'm not going to mention her name yet because I want her to tell her own story about this, but, she picked Christianity as the faith that she has embraced after doing all of it. So she did all the Buddhist stuff and the meditation, all of it. She came back to Christianity because that story particularly resonated with her. And a lot of Christians hate her guts because she's showing them their consciousness level of non, I want to make a judgment on it of good or bad. It's not good or bad. It's just awareness level
Yes.
of literal understanding of something that can't even be understood at all because it can only be experienced. Right.
Absolutely.
So,
yes, I do make enemies on occasion. So the vlog that I have on YouTube, I like to trigger people. I like to say things that make people go, what, and one of the ones was about, so I have strong faith. My faith is so strong. I have been held in the hands so many times. And I'm still alive. And so I don't believe in the devil. And a lot of times people don't understand, well, how can I have such strong faith, in God and not believe in the devil? And so it's like, well, let's have a chat about it. Let's talk about it. So that's the important thing, when your work says everything you've been taught, is wrong, or a lot of things we know are not possibly real. They're just a construct. And when you allow yourself to be aware and dig into that other side, then you keep what's valuable, right? And then the rest can sit on the shelf until either you never need it or one day you go, that's exactly what I need right now.
we're gonna wrap up, and I'm gonna leave people with something they can do right now to move forward in their own journey inside themselves, and then offer you the same opportunity to close however you want. And so what I would suggest is that to understand there's really two things keeping you from getting everything you always wanted in your life. One is your belief systems, and the second is your feelings of burden inside yourself. How do you deal with those things? Belief systems, you have to examine them and say, is this true? And not hold on to them. And the second thing, the burdens, is you have to experience the pain of those burdens. You don't have to go figure yourself out and do all this stuff. Just feel the experience. If you do those two things, your life will change.
Absolutely. I agree. And it might be a little bit scary, like ripping the Band-Aid off, it has to be done and it's going to be a little painful, but you got to get the light and the air and the oxygen back.
Yeah, the pain becomes fun after you do it for a while, and then you start looking forward to the pain.
Yes. And the simple thing that I would like people to remember is we have so much power in our breath, and we do that short survival breathing. And so when we allow ourselves to breathe fully and deeply and draw in the love and light that's ours by abundance and divine right, and then exhale, relax, and let go, all of a sudden that peace of mind becomes very clear.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much, Elle, for joining me. It was a great conversation. I really appreciate it. And you have a YouTube channel as well, so we'll put that link down below in the notes.
Wonderful. Yay. Thank you as always, and looking forward to spending more time with you again soon. Aloha.